CCC Productions has a few core beliefs. One of those is that football is the ultimate team sport, meaning that every single player on a football team is important. Another one is that the two most important aspects of football are blocking and tackling. And yet another is that on every single football play, one player has the ball, and 21 players do not have the ball. So what's going on without the ball is more interesting and more directly impactful on a game. All that said, we do not automatically bequeath an MVP award, be it for the league or for a team, to the quarterback. In fact, the NFL MVP award is a lie. It should be renamed to the best perceived quarterback on one of the league's best 6 teams. That's the only player who wins it anymore. It used to be that a running back could sneak in and win one with a historic kind of season, but that's it. We live in a world where Jerry Rice, Ed Reed, Reggie White, and Anthony Munoz have never had a chance at the award. Yes, Lawrence Taylor and Alan Page have won the award on the defensive side of the ball, and even a damn kicker has won it. But those things will never happen again. With that rant out of the way, we will now be giving out the MVP award for each team in the league. Where a quarterback is warranted to win the award, he will win it. But football is so much more than just a quarterback. If that puts us in the minority, so be it. This is the channel's subjective opinion. No C-score being used here. But we will be counting these players down by their team's C-scores to end the season. There's a link below in the description to see those scores. This intro has been long enough, so we won't be dwelling too hard on these selections. At least not for most of them. Thank you for joining us today. We are ready to go. The worst team in football this season, despite their 5-12 record, was the Carolina Panthers. And our pick for their team MVP is guard Damian Lewis. In the end, the offense did seem to be the better side of the ball for Carolina. And as a new signing from the Seahawks, Lewis has been the best of the bunch. He's not a Pro Bowler or even really at a Pro Bowl level, but hey, this had to go to somebody, right? It could have been Adam Thielen, I suppose, but he's just missed too many games. The next team up is the Cleveland Browns, and this was an easy pick. Edge rusher Myles Garrett. Garrett can play for any team and be a superstar. The proof? He's going to the Hall of Fame one day as a member of the Cleveland Browns. This is no Brock Purdy situation. Imagine Purdy as a 7th round third stringer who was forced into action for Jacksonville or, say, Cleveland. He would be nowhere near the $65 million a year he is gonna hoodwink from the 49ers this offseason. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Garrett. He absolutely dominates. But he began this NFL season as less likely to win the MVP award than his teammate Dorian Thompson-Robinson. That is a massive joke. Now on to the team that has clinched the #1 pick in the 2025 draft, the Tennessee Titans. Their team MVP is defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. Sometimes there is a single good grape, plump and juicy, among a rotten batch. I suppose that means Simmons is plump and juicy. Let's go with that. He is the only guy on the Titans defense that teams truly need to account for. Maybe one day he'll have a little bit more talent around him. Another awful team and another pick at defensive tackle for team MVP. For the New York Giants, we have Dexter Lawrence. He's sexy and he wants you to know about it. But he's also pretty darn good at football, and it's not too hard to figure that out when watching him. An athletic big man who can swim his way into the backfield and stuff the run with equal aplomb. It would be nice to see what he could accomplish if he was on an actual NFL team. The New England Patriots didn't get any better this season with a new head coach, and they're going to have another one next season. But this was a very easy pick, cornerback Christian Gonzalez. He is a very good player on a very bad team. We didn't get to see much of Gonzalez last season as a rookie due to injury, but we got to see his arrival as a true man-to-man shutdown corner in just his second season in the league. He ought to be a perennial Pro Bowler and All-Pro candidate for years to come. Our next awful team brings us to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have selected edge rusher Josh Hines-Allen. First off, we thank Mr. Hines-Allen for adding the Hines to his name solely for our benefit in order to differentiate from that other Josh Allen. In reality, there were no major standouts on this team. This is essentially a default pick for a dude who's had a fine, if unspectacular season. Sometimes when a team just isn't any good, you look for the dude who did the most work, and for the Raiders, that work was done by rookie tight end Brock Bowers. I suppose it's still true that tight end is one of the hardest positions to transition to coming out of college, so perhaps Bowers is so good that he made the transition look easy. And to think there were draft experts decrying this pick because the Raiders already had Michael Mayer. Imagine being paid all that money to be that damn stupid. We've now made it to America's team, so they believe, the Dallas Cowboys, and their team MVP, wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. Speaking of draft analysis, does anyone remember the quote-unquote mistake that the Cowboys made when they drafted Lamb because they already had Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup? Pepperidge Farm remembers, and so do I. Just draft the best player available, and he may just become your best player. And that's exactly what Lamb is for the Cowboys. Yes, I'm just as shocked as you are that we've only now made it to the New York Jets. Their team MVP, linebacker Quincy Williams. Make no mistake, the Jets were garbage this season. And, sorry Jets fans, there doesn't seem to be an obvious way out. You are not just a quarterback away. But the Williams brothers sure are fun to watch, Quincy and Quinnen. And Quincy had himself a fine season and certainly bought in with that green hair. And with Quinnen less dominant this season, Quincy gets the nod. This team looked like a legitimate Super Bowl contender after week 2. That's why we played the entire season. These are the New Orleans Saints. Team MVP here, edge rusher Carl Granderson. Sometimes bad teams are easy to pick for, and sometimes they're tough to pick for. This was a tough one. Alvin Kamara is the easy top dog for your fantasy football team, but what little quality the Saints have shown this season has been on defense, so we're going with Granderson. Also, kind of as a rule, given similar quality, you always gotta go with an edge rusher over a running back. They're just harder to find. Granderson stays on the field often and finds his way to the quarterback at a better rate than most. He's probably best suited as around the 4th best player on a team's defense. But here with New Orleans, he's number 1. The annual tradition continues. The Indianapolis Colts threatened that they're going to make the playoffs, but failed to do so. Indy's team MVP is guard Quentin Nelson. Nelson is a road grader extraordinaire, and I think it would be equally awesome, hilarious, and justified for him to be running alongside Jonathan Taylor or whoever else is carrying the ball downfield, only for that ball carrier to then give the ball to Nelson to rumble in the rest of the way. I'm a bit older now, but I do believe even I could have a nice day running behind him. This is the black sheep of the 2024 NFC North, the Chicago Bears. Their team MVP, shutdown corner, Jalen Johnson. The Bears should be more willing to trade Caleb Williams than Johnson, because A, in a league that horrifically overvalues quarterbacks, they'd get more for Williams, and B, they are unlikely to ever find another Johnson. Even in a down season by his standards, he's still top-notch in coverage and always capable of following a team's top receiver on a game-by-game basis. The Miami Dolphins made a lot of noise at the end of the season after a rough start, but were unable to get themselves into the playoffs. Their team MVP this season, offensive tackle Teron Armstead. On the whole, the Dolphins have been more impressive defensively this season than offensively, a weird thing to say about a Mike McDaniel coached team. But Armstead has just about been a literal rock at the end of that offensive line. Devon Achane is good too, and if he ever took greater control over the backfield, he would get more consideration. Chargering is more well known, but falconing is also a thing. The Falcons missed the playoffs this season, but that's not because of their team MVP, guard Chris Lindstrom. Here's a spot where we knew it wasn't going to be the quarterback. Lindstrom is likely the league's best guard, especially as a run blocker, but you can also make a case for the best offensive lineman in the league, period. Bijan Robinson certainly relishes the opportunity to get in behind him, and the entire offense benefits from his presence. Much to my personal dismay, the only team from last year's Final Four that missed the playoffs this year were the San Francisco 49ers, but they've got a great team MVP in tight end George Kittle. This award was earmarked for Fred Warner earlier in the season, and while he has been mostly phenomenal this year, Kittle is still the best all-around offensive player in the game. In general, his receiving numbers fall just short of some other superstar tight ends, but as a blocker alone, Kittle is a superstar. That he has the total package and is one of the hardest dudes in the league to bring down when he's got the ball in his hands. And with all-world tackle Trent Williams missing as much time as he did, Kittle gets the easy call here. We've arrived at our first playoff team from 2024, the AFC South champion Houston Texans. We give their team MVP to cornerback Derek Stingley. Now, Stingley hasn't been bad in his first 2 seasons in the league, but he was looking like a far inferior player to Sauce Gardner, taking one spot at the same position in the draft behind him. So in that sense, this was a breakout season for the newly minted shutdown corner. It was hard to bypass Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter for this honor though. That's how good Stingley has been. We've now arrived at the NFC West champion Los Angeles Rams, and had he played the entire season, this award almost certainly goes to wide receiver Puka Nacua. But he didn't, so we're getting our second rookie and first defensive rookie team MVP in edge rusher Jared Verse. Woefully underdrafted last season, Verse is the leader of a very young front seven that includes Kobe Turner and fellow rookie Braden Fisk. Much in the way he transitioned from Albany to the ACC, Verse has seamlessly transitioned from Florida State to the NFL, and he is already a top player at his position. This young man should not be underestimated anymore. We're going to get a little controversial here, and for the Cincinnati Bengals, our pick for team MVP is not quarterback Joe Burrow, it's wide receiver Jamar Chase. Let's pose it all this way. If you remove Jamar Chase from the Bengals and replace him with a league average wide receiver, Joe Burrow's numbers are going to face a fairly substantial drop-off. Replace Joe Burrow with a league average quarterback, and I don't see a massive drop from Chase. He would be just as capable of catching short passes and turning them into 60-yard touchdowns. That, to me, better defines value. We've got another team that missed the playoffs that still rank ahead of teams that made it. We're talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Their team MVP in 2024, former Giant defensive tackle Leonard Williams. This one was a pure 50-50 between Williams and corner Devin Witherspoon. To be totally honest with you, I'm not all the way sure why I went with Williams. Maybe it's because he's been overlooked in his career so often, but he has had a great year and is just one of so many former Giants thriving away from the Meadowlands. And now we have C-Score's highest ranked team from 2024 that did not make the playoffs, the Arizona Cardinals. Their team MVP is safety Budda Baker. There'll be some calls for Trey McBride here because he was an every week starter for your fantasy team. And while there is a certain value to catching a bunch of short passes, Budda Baker really does it all for the Cards defense. He may not be top of the line in pass defense, but he gets his nose into everything and often finds himself in the backfield as well. They ended the season on a terrible 4-game losing streak, but on the whole, they were still a winning team and made it to the playoffs, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our pick for the team MVP, edge rusher TJ Watt. There were some close calls here. Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, Joey Porter, Minkah Fitzpatrick were all great. But it's easy to default to TJ here, not just on name recognition, because he is still a phenomenal player and much better against the run than most people realize. He was my early pick for league MVP, and while he's fallen from that high standard, his big playability still reigns. We've now made it to the Washington Commanders, and we've also broken the seal on quarterbacks. Washington's team MVP, quarterback Jaden Daniels. Daniels is now the third different rookie to serve as his team's MVP this season. Now, this isn't a total endorsement of some kind of greatness. Earlier this season, I considered him somewhat, but not directly comparable to Daniel Jones. Now he's better than that, and he's added so much as a runner, and he seems to have a genuine grasp of his team from a leadership standpoint. That's enough to award him with his team's MVP this season. We're down to our final 10 teams. Yes, the 15-2 AFC West champion, number 1 seed owning Kansas City Chiefs only get here. Their team MVP, an easy pick, defensive tackle Chris Jones. The Chiefs' record has never matched its play on the field this season, but the majority of their success this season does lie with their defense. And while Trent McDuffie has been awesome, nothing much of note takes place here without Jones, who is also a rightful 2-time Super Bowl MVP. This coming from a 49ers fan who has had to watch him wreck shop against us twice on the game's biggest stage. Who's got it better than the Chargers? Well, a few teams do, but they were great this season getting back into the playoffs, led by their team MVP, edge rusher Khalil Mack. Offense gets all the ink, but the turnaround for this Chargers team lies strictly with the defense. Derwin James is certainly back, but Khalil Mack continues his unadulterated path to the Hall of Fame. More than just a sack master, Mack has also been excellent against the run and bats down his fair share of passes too. Not so bad a player for old Jim Harbaugh to inherit. All season long, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been better than their record would indicate, and they were vindicated by winning the NFC South this season. Their team MVP, offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs. He may have switched over from right tackle to left tackle, but what hasn't changed is his superior athleticism and his dominance. It's like, dude, you are not getting past this guy, okay? Line up somewhere else. And on a team that throws as often as the Bucs do, who can be more valuable than someone with this skill set? It's been 9 seasons since the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl. They had not yet made the playoffs until this season, and they were led by 3 different first-team All-Pro candidates, Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, and Patrick Surtain. We chose edge rusher Nick Bonito. What it comes down to for me is this: Allen is very good at his specific skill. Surtain is very good at his specific skill. But Bonito has displayed more of an all-around game this season, and that defines value a bit more precisely. I've got no problem whatsoever if you want to go with Allen or Surtain though. I will have a problem if you want to go with someone from the offense, as this Broncos team has clearly been led by the D this season. Due to the 17-game schedule, the Minnesota Vikings entered this year's playoffs with more wins than any wildcard team in history. But in fairness, they also tie for the fewest losses as a wildcard entry. Their team MVP is one of the easiest picks of all. As long as this dude is in uniform and healthy, he is at least Minnesota's offensive MVP. Wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. We will now pose the same scenario we did regarding Jamar Chase, another LSU wide receiver. If you remove Justin Jefferson from the Vikings and replace him with a league average wide receiver, Sam Darnold's numbers would face a fairly substantial drop-off. Replace Sam Darnold with a league average quarterback, and well, Justin Jefferson's numbers probably stay the same because Sam Darnold is essentially a league average quarterback. Anyone who thinks that Sam Darnold is more valuable than Justin Jefferson, I just don't know what to tell you. I guess that maybe you're stuck on the notion that being a quarterback is the be-all, end-all, as if football is a ping-pong game between quarterbacks rather than an offense against a defense. Sam Darnold will be joining this list: Jeff George, Dante Culpepper, Case Keenum, and Kirk Cousins, former Vikings quarterbacks who signed big contracts elsewhere that those teams almost immediately regretted. Yeah, Justin Jefferson is the Vikings team MVP. Duh. Moving on. We recently put out a video of the best third-place teams in NFL history, a list that this Green Bay Packer team will be joining. They were led this season by their team MVP, safety Xavier McKinney. Interception numbers don't always tell the story, but McKinney was Johnny on the spot for a good portion of this season, and those interceptions always seemed to come at the most opportune moments. The offense has shown a little brighter for the Pack this season, so anyone going with Elgin Jenkins or even Josh Jacobs won't have too much of an argument from me. McKinney, by the way, a former Giant. The Buffalo Bills are back at it, AFC East champions, finally hoping to break through to get to and win the Super Bowl. Their team MVP, quarterback Josh Allen. We've said when the quarterback should be the team's MVP, then we will name him as such. And in Buffalo, that is clearly the case. Josh Allen does this, he does that, and if needed, can do this and that at the exact same time. He's received plenty of glaze from the media this season, and it has been deserved. We see no need to pile on any harder. Nearing the end here, 3 teams remaining. We're at the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're ready to get a little controversial again. Not because we're not picking an excellent player who had an excellent season, but because of who was being overlooked. Another former Giant, Saquon Barkley, racked up 2,000 plus rushing yards, and believe me, I know his value because he was on my fantasy football team. He ran behind a great line led by future Hall of Famer Lane Johnson. A.J. Brown spent most of the season being dominant. And of course, there's Jalen Hurts, the quarterback. We're flipping the script though, and we're going with defense, giving this award to linebacker Zach Bond. A converted pass rusher, Bond was an absolute revelation as an off-ball linebacker during his first season in Philly. What do you want in a modern NFL linebacker? Pass coverage? Run stopping? Occasional blitzing? Tackling everything in sight? Bond did it all, salvaging a quiet early career and transforming into superstardom. We now arrive at C-Score's top team from the AFC, a stature they've held before, the Baltimore Ravens. This was a tough call. Lamar Jackson won the MVP last season, and he's been better this season. The difference for the Ravens, though, has been the return to form of Ronnie Stanley and the addition of Derrick Henry, a one-of-one running back. In the end, the impact for this offense has come from team MVP Derrick Henry. He is one of the league's only running backs who requires an 8-man front, regardless of what team he's on or how much offensive talent he has around him. He opens everything up, and credit for that offensive talent around him. They are taking advantage of that. After defeating the Minnesota Vikings in Week 7, the Detroit Lions took over the top spot in the C-Score rankings, and they have not yet relinquished it. They have won the NFC North for the second straight season. They are the NFC's #1 seed. They are the favorites to win Super Bowl 59. Their team MVP is offensive tackle Penei Sewell. You gotta love head coach Dan Campbell for at least trying to make Sewell one of the glory boys who gets his hands on the ball. But the engine of the league's best offense, as part of the league's best team, resides in this man right here. He is practically unstoppable as a run blocker, nearly unstoppable as a pass blocker, and he is also our pick for the real NFL MVP. Thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. Consider liking it and sharing it if you would please. Subscribe to the channel and ding that bell to receive all future notifications. We've now arrived at the part where you can tell me just how wrong I am. I know I am in the minority in my opinion on quarterbacks, that they are far more likely to hurt their teams than they are to elevate them, and that well more often a great team makes a quarterback than a great quarterback makes a team. I know that Penei Sewell has a 0% chance of winning league MVP, but maybe you think he deserves some kind of consideration. If you think that Bo Nix is truly Denver's MVP, or if Sam Darnold is better at football and therefore more valuable than Justin Jefferson, let me know about that, or anything else that you may have on your mind. Do so down there in the comments section below. As always, I do thank you very much for joining us today. And until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.